Everyone, DLRR here with yet another build video. What you're seeing here is a Righteous Fire cast on crit Spectral Throw character. I was inspired by Fox Tactics Righteous Surgeon and thought, why not throw some cast on crit action on that baby. And this is the end result. I'm very proud of this character because right now my gear is pretty much definitely not best in slot. In fact, there's a lot of room for improvement, and yet I seem to be cruising through maps relatively easily. I do have a few key improvements I want on my gear, but I'll get into that at a later stage. Before I go into further detail, maybe let's just see this guy in action. So as you can see, the Righteous Fire helps cover up for some of the downsides of your Spectral Throw cast on crit. Most times Spectral Throw cast on crit has a lot of trouble with single creatures where it's hard to get lots of cast onto a single guy, but you can just use your Righteous Fire to pin them down if you're too lazy to try and crit them. Otherwise, it works pretty nicely. One thing to note about this character, it has 3 effective ranges. Because I'm using 2 specific spells linked to my cast on crit, and these are Flame Surge and Arc, pretty much the same as what Fox Tactic had on his main character. See, I'm having a bit of trouble here just because it's a cast on crit guy, but the burning helped. As I was saying, I've got 3 effective ranges for this character. The first one is pretty much the range that I spend most of my time in, and that's arc range. I can snipe things from afar as long as my Spectral Throw is critting on guys near me, and that's pretty easy. The next range I have is Flame Surge range. As you can see, Flame Surge is not that far, but I took out that rare pretty easily with Flame Surge, and I didn't need any of my Righteous Fire to kill him. Lastly, there's Righteous Fire range where I go right up close and personal to the rare. It has the double effect of giving the added bonus onto my Flame Surge damage. In addition, I burn the guy as well. So with those 3 effective ranges, I think you have a very good idea of how this build works. With that, let me just clear out a few more of these creep, and we can talk about the build. See, I'm just burning these guys that normal Spectral Throw cast on crit would take forever to kill. So this build, gear wise, as I said, my gear is not best in slot. I have your standard Rise of the Phoenix to support Righteous Fire, Rat's Nest to support cast on crit. If I have enough crit, I can get rid of this at a later stage for better gear. My wand, look at this shit wand. I made it with 2 wriggles, 1 scouring and a couple of alterations. I've got no spell damage, I've got no spell crit chance. If I bought a proper wand, my damage would be a lot higher. The rest of my gear is pretty much average. Just go through them very quickly. And look at my chest, I don't even have any life on this chest. The energy shield is nice for Arctic armor, but even then it's not a lot of energy shield. So if I do get a proper 6 link, I may look out for Carcass Jack or Lightning Coil, but for now this will do. If you have a 5 link, you can not use Life Leech and just rely on your flasks, which should be fine. As for the rest of my gear, this is my amulet, rings. I like diamond rings for this build just because of the strike, crit strike chance. And that's my gear. Flasks wise, I focus almost entirely on surgeons, as any cast on crit character would know. When it comes to killing big bosses, another alternative in addition to going into Righteous Fire range to kill them with crit, I use my wand, and I can just switch over Spectral Throw with Barrage. My Righteous Fire doesn't go away because Righteous Fire needs to be there all the time. So This gives me 8 casts per attack on the boss, but it's not that useful, not as useful as Spectral Throw for big groups. So I save it for really tough bosses where there aren't a lot of creep around. Passives wise, very similar to what you have on Fox Tactics build, which had lots of aura nodes, aura, inner force, aura nodes, Eldritch Battery as well for a bit of Arctic armor. In addition to what he had, I took lots of crit nodes here, up here as well. I eventually will take some crit nodes here too. I've got attack speed nodes here, and where I sustain my Righteous Fire, I've got regen nodes 1, 2, and 2% of life regen here. I also take the necessary max fire resistances here and here. So that's the passive tree. Skill gems wise, you'll see that my skill gems are not very well leveled. Spectral Throw, of course I leave it at level 1 for minimum mana. Arc is only a level 18. I hope to get this to level 20 or 21 one day. The other main spell that casts is Flame CoC. It's not even 18, it's just 17. So lots of room for improvement there if you use this build. The rest are simple GMP, cast on crit, and an optional life leech. If you are feeling comfortable with how tanky you are, you can change that out for another spell, say Ethereal Knives or Fireball. On to auras. My Purity of Fire is just a mere level 20. I'm not supporting it with Empower of any of that sort. It's just with reduced mana, and yet with level 20, because of my aura nodes and my vitality, which is only a 17, I can sustain my Righteous Fire just fine. No snapshotting in this build. Other auras I'm using, personal preference, Purity of Fire, Clarity, Grace. You can do anything you want there. Other defenses I have, again personal preference. I like the cast when damage taken, Enduring Cry, Immortal Call combination. You can do whatever you want there too. Movement wise, Whirling Blades, Arctic Armor just for a little bit of defense, doesn't help that much, helps a bit with reflect, that's about it. But since I've got so much mana regen anyway, why not? I can't level this too high at the moment because my mana regen is only 130. And note that the mana drain here is much higher because of Inner Force. But as I improve my mana regeneration, I can level this up further. My current curse of choice is Critical Weakness. When my crit is high enough, I eventually will change it out for Elemental Weakness, which is much stronger damage wise, and it also helps the Righteous Fire damage. You can see my defensive setup here. I've got 39% of evasion chance, which means that kinda tanky, but hits do come through relatively frequently, and for those I need to rely on my life flasks to keep me up, and I pretty much almost always go in with Granite on. Resistances are great. I could do with some chaos resistance, of course. You've seen my life and mana regen already. Offense wise, my attack speed is 1.95. This could go up higher with perhaps additional investments in the passive tree, but I'm quite happy with where it is. Accuracy, I'm also happy with where it is, and I had some accuracy notes here to sustain it, and that should be sufficient for most builds. And crit chance currently is 45%, thanks to Rat's Nest. If I remove Rat's Nest, it drops to 38.8, which is quite bad. I may I will continue to get crit notes hopefully, and with those, hopefully one day I can get rid of Rat's Nest. So I think I've covered most of this build, so let's just see it in how it affects bigger crowds. seem to be doing a crap job here, what with all the bosses attacking me, but never mind. Thanks to crit notes, I can very easily recharge my flasks. Let me just lead him here. Okay, I think that was a bad demonstration. Let's try with this pack. As you can see, anything within the Flame Surge Blast dies pretty fast. Anything within the arc range takes a bit longer to gun down. And that's the build. So I've covered skill gems, I've covered my passives, I've covered the playstyle and the 3 ranges with which to be effective in. I have included the link to further details on the build guide below. Feel free to post any questions in the comments. Hope you enjoyed looking at this build, and perhaps somebody who has better gear and a lot more time for this game than I do can perfect this build. Looking forward to seeing that. Thanks again for your time, guys. With that, signing off, this is the Flaming Cast on Crit build. Thanks guys, happy hunting.